What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. So as y'all know, as I did end up mentioning in that Mercedes-Benz truck video, I do want to start looking at certain vehicles and driving them in the game, but also going over some of the history behind some of these cars as well. The reason for that is a lot of games are just simply not going to have something like a Subaru Brat. In fact, do let me know in the comments below of another game that even has this car in it. Now, we all do know, for one, this car is going to be rare. If you guys are wondering, it's not going to be expensive to get, but it's going to be difficult to get. I do know that it's going to be currently in the auction house. That will end up changing. But with that, I gotta admit, this car is going to be fairly interesting. First things first that I do want to mention, though, is I did end up engine swapping this vehicle. The reason for that is I feel like it's probably going to make it a tad better. That way the car is going to be more drivable, but also it is going to be faster on top of it. So heading into this here, you are going to see for the Subaru Brat, though, there is going to be 4 different engine swaps. The first one is going to be a D level, which to be honest is the regular original motor. You're also then going to have the 2.0 liter flat 4 turbo. We then have the 2.5 liter. We also have the turbo rally, and then finally the 4.0 liter F6 or flat 6. For me, though, I did end up putting in the 2.0 liter flat 4, which I would say is going to be a better fitted engine for this vehicle, and I would say a lot of people are most likely going to do something fairly similar. The other part of that, though, is a lot of people are going to be wondering about this car a bit. How is it? This thing is going to be considered vans and utility. Is it the best vans and utility? Well, I gotta admit, this car is good, besides one thing that I have noticed: it does like to flip over, which I will cue a clip in the background. Now, the one thing I want to mention, though, is I'm not going to say that the car always wants to flip over, but sometimes it definitely does seem like it if you go over like uneven ground and stuff, so keep that in mind. If you are wondering, is the Brat going to be the best vans and utility in the game? Honestly, probably not. I would say something like the limited edition Gen here is probably better. I also finally got my hands on the Sunshine S, so I do want to drive that thing. It looks really funny. What's hilarious, though, is I was doing a race in the Brat, and I was also losing to the Sunshine on expert difficulty. Don't know what that car had in it, but either way, I was kind of getting smoked. Now, the other thing I did want to discuss here with the Subaru, though, as I did mention earlier, is going to be some facts around the vehicle and also some things about the history behind the Subaru Brat. Now, we all are going to know right now that this car was eventually replaced with the Subaru Baja later on in time, but this is going to be the original one. Funny part is, I was looking up things on this vehicle. I did end up finding out that apparently this car sold for around maybe 13, 14 grand recently for a used one. Some of the mint ones were like $30,000 USD, which is pretty dang impressive, considering they're going to be around, what is it, like, 20, 30 years old. But what's funny about this, though, is the launch on this car with this setup is going to be pretty dang impressive. I would say that's probably one of the funniest parts about it, guys. Like, check that out. I'm already doing almost 80 miles an hour, so having the 2.0 liter in the Brat is probably going to be the way to go. Now, one thing you probably notice is going to be the chairs in the back. Exactly what is that, and did that really matter? So a small backstory on why the seats are actually in the back of the Subaru Brat. This is something I was also wondering. Like, when I got this truck, I'm like, why do I got seats in the pickup bed? What's hilarious, though, is living in Florida, I'm sure if you guys have been down here, you have most likely seen people sitting in the back of pickup trucks. It is honestly very common down here, something that people do. Is it going to be safe? Probably not, but people are going to do it. But regardless, though, with the Subaru Brat having the back seats in it, this is going to be a design choice made to avoid import tariffs on light trucks. It is going to read, these seats were not standard car seats, but rather designed to classify the Brat as a passenger car, which had a lower import tax. The jump seats were a unique feature of the Brat, contributing to its distinctive appearance and helping it bypass the chicken tax. That is going to be a 25% import tax on light trucks, and I guess putting the seats in the back of the Brat is going to make that pretty much go away, which is honestly pretty hilarious. When I first saw that, I was like, wait a minute, why do I have seats back there? But then again, in a pickup truck, it's honestly kind of dope. What's also kind of insane to me, and another thing that really makes me like Forza, is coming down to the fact that they're going to have a 1980 version of this car. There's also going to be many vehicles in Forza that, again, you are most likely never going to see in other games. The 1980 model year in the Subaru Brat was also going to be part of the initial generation of this car until it initially got a mid-cycle refresh in 1982. So 2 years after the one that was in this game, that one did end up getting upgrades to it. And this car was also going to be styled and based off a Subaru I've never even heard about, which is going to be the Subaru Leon. But after looking at a photo of it, I honestly could see the resemblance there. What's also kind of funny, guys, did anybody else know, and I'm sure a lot of people probably already know this, but I was also wondering though if Subaru Brat probably did end up standing for something. Turns out Brat is going to be bi-drive recreational all-terrain transporter, which is going to be the design of having like the seats in the back of the pickup bed, which honestly I feel like a lot of trucks in Florida could probably benefit from something like that. With that though, this thing was also going to have the 1.6 liter engine when it first did end up coming out. It then did end up going to a 1.8 liter and also having a turbocharge later on. So we all do know the engines probably did end up getting a bit crazier as time did end up going on. What's kind of crazy to think about though is looking at the history of the Subaru here and like in general of old vehicles and stuff when doing research on them, guys. Isn't it crazy? Cars back then, this thing had 69 horsepower. And no, that's not a typo. It literally did. And what's insane though is between 1983 and 1984, models could also be purchased with an optional 94 horsepower motor. Isn't that kind of crazy, guys? Like, look how far cars have come. If a car doesn't have like around 200 or like 190 on some of the different, I think some of the Civics have like 180 or something like that, or like around 190, 200 and stuff like that. But back then though, cars had like 60 to 90 horsepower in some of them. The Sunshine in this game had what, like 60? We all do know some of the cars are not going to have that much, but it really is insane how far cars have come. I mean, if a car does 0 to 60 in 5.5 seconds or so, or 5 seconds, which is honestly still pretty quick for what it is now going to be considered a turtle, while back then cars went 0 to 60 in probably like 3 to 5 business days, which was probably like 8 to 9, even 10 seconds, which is kind of insane how far things really have come. But even in today's standards, some vehicles, even doing 0 to 60 in 5, as I mentioned, are still considered slow, even though they're kind of quick. There's also another piece of history of the Subaru Brat I did want to read off here. This is going to be on the Wikipedia, but I will have a screenshot so you guys can see it. Developed in Japan in 1977 at the request of the president of Subaru of America. The Brat was introduced to match the demand of small trucks in North America, which I could definitely see that happening. Nowadays, we're pretty much seeing more pickup trucks over here than pretty much everything else, and also very oversized SUVs. Who would have thought? But besides that, though, it's going to say in order to compete against other manufacturers such as Toyota, Nissan, and Mazda, unlike trucks from the other manufacturers, all Brats had four-wheel drive as they were developed from the existing Leon station wagon, which was the other car I did mention. When the Leon was redesigned in 1979 from the 1980 model year, the Brat continued with the original Gen 1 body until 1982. Isn't that kind of crazy how like other manufacturers are going to look at cars and go, yo, we should probably compete with that as well? Which is also why it's kind of sad now, I gotta mention this, that many manufacturers are going to big SUVs and stuff, and we all do know pickup trucks and all that are going to be popular, at least here in the USA, but it is kind of annoying a lot of manufacturers are focusing on bigger SUVs, getting rid of some of the cooler small sedans, or even something like a Subaru Baja, which is the newer one, kind of based on the Brat. I thought that was a pretty cool vehicle, but we're also not really going to have specialized cars like something like the Brat or things like that, because it seems like SUVs are selling more than anything else, which is kind of unfortunate. Do let me know your thoughts on that, though. What do y'all think about many of the manufacturers making SUVs now? I understand it, but at the same time, I gotta admit, it is really sad seeing some of the cool cars basically just disappearing. Now, do let me know what y'all think about the Subaru Brat in the comments below. Do you guys have this car? Do you plan on using it? If you have this car and you haven't drove it yet, I would recommend putting the 2.0 liter motor in it, and I would say this car is going to be fairly decent, guys. I am going to have my tune code for it right now. If you do want to try it out, I gotta admit, for a van and utility type of vehicle here in Forza, it's honestly pretty good. Is it going to be the fastest car? Probably not, because there is going to be other options out there, but this thing is fun and it's definitely usable.